let's go ahead and do our obligatory thing I've learned at conferences, take a nice selfie with the crowd. Thanks everybody.
Hey!
You're a podcast, right? You're a video cast this, aren't you?
No video cast. I'm not doing no Periscope, no blast. No,
okay.
No, so my name is Kevin Harvell, and I would like to thank everybody for coming out this evening. I know Thursdays in St. Louis is always busy. Travis has got his Venture Cafe downtown, so I do appreciate you all making this venture way out west on Highway 40, and not always the best time of the day to listen about podcasting. Now, how many people are familiar with podcasting? I know there's a few people here that definitely are familiar. So hopefully I'll be able to give everybody of all your knowledge levels something to walk away from. New, maybe some might be old information, but we'll see. So you can find me, kevinharvell.com is like my main personal website, and then also a couple other of the shows, and then a few other things I'm going to talk about as well. So who am I? I'm a podcaster, producer, speaker, and consultant. Speaking is kind of new. I've only given presentations a handful of times. So this is the first time I've actually given this particular presentation, so I'd really love some feedback on it as well. What do I love? I love podcasting, tech gadgets, sports, craft beer. Thank you, Angela, again for the Schlafly.
Anything you need, Kevin.
Pizza. Going to East Coast Pizza after this down in the valley, so if anybody would like to come along, join me. Definitely Beatles and reading. I love to read. I don't have much time to read because I'm always editing podcasts or videos. So it's one thing or the other. So obviously the first love is podcasting, and I close with reading. So what is a podcast? Some of you, as mentioned, know about podcasting. Some of you don't. Basic definition of a podcast is a digital audio file made available on the internet for downloading to a computer or portable media player, typically available as a series of new installments of which can be received by subscribers automatically. Again, personal, portable computer media player. You can consume anything that you want right here. You can also listen via the web, depending on how the podcast host has their websites set up. And you can also listen to them in your car, as more and more cars these days have Bluetooth capability or auxiliary ports. Plug your phone directly into your car, listening to your favorite podcast, kind of like XM radio in a way. My background in podcasting, I've now been involved as either a host, co-host, guest, or producer in over 250 episodes. I did a count today. 266 is what I'm currently at right now. That's a lot. So shows include STL Tech Talk. This launched in September of 2013, so we're 2 full years in, up to 89. The show's format has changed numerous times over the years. It's went from just talking about consumer technology like smartphones, applications, etc., to now talking about St. Louis technological startups. So we've got a really great tech scene going on here in St. Louis, as many of you all know. Cortex District, for example, Square, Jack Dorsey, Jim McKelvey are just now bringing a Square office back to St. Louis, which Square is the electronic payment system. So it's really glad to have them back in St. Louis. And they're actually going to be in the same office building that I work in, CET. So right across from IKEA. Cannot wait to have that kicking off. My newest show is called Who's Who in St. Louis. I'm 2 episodes in on this show, and this is kind of like, I describe it as a personal playground for me. It gives me the opportunity to learn more about the people and places that make St. Louis great. My first 2 guests were Tim McKernan, who hosts the Morning After. It's his morning sports talk radio show on CBS 920 AM with Doug Vaughn from Channel 4 and Jim Hayes from Fox Sports Midwest. They do it from 7 to 10, Monday through Friday. He was first guest. He's been in radio for quite a while now, over 10 years. It was a really great first interview. My second guest on that show was Frank Opinion, large morning show in the afternoon. So obviously some people know Frank, and that was a fantastic interview. I've loved listening to a show for, I guess I've been listening for good 8-9 years now, but he's been in St. Louis radio and marketing for 30+ years. So it was fantastic. Met him at the station. We recorded in the conference room. And as you can kind of see, this is my travel setup. This is pretty much the setup that I use. I'm not at the point where I'm really using a mixer, so this is it. It's about as simple as you can get. Tech Informist. This show's currently on a 2-month hiatus because I've got so much else going on. And this is where I transitioned to STL Tech Talk and my passion for consumer technology devices. This still gives me that outlet to talk about that stuff. So I transitioned that to there. That's how it was spun off. And that is at episode 103, and it is a 1-year-old show as of September. Codecast by STL Tech Talk. Alejandro back there knows a lot about that because it's about software development and coding and programming. Hosted by JJ Hammond and Gus Emery, because I am not a programmer. I'm not a developer. I know nothing about code, anything like that. So I just produce on that show. And even though we haven't recorded an episode since the end of March, people are still downloading those episodes. So it's obviously still a topic that people want to learn more and more information from. And then last but not least, the MS Mobile Show. 2015 has been a big year for Microsoft as they kind of transition more into a software side as opposed to hardware. Windows 10's launched. They're getting ready to have their big event to release new devices like Surface Pro 4, new Windows phones, Microsoft Band 2 on October 6th. This is hosted by Vernon Smith from Fargo, North Dakota, and David Kimball from Seattle, Washington. So again, the power of social media, Twitter, that's how I met those two guys, and I said, hey, would you guys like to do this show? And being big Microsoft fans, they said, yeah, we'd love to do it. So they're on episode 29, and they record that every Monday. So the early days of podcasting, it was first known as audio blogging. We've now kind of let's just say the current popular term is video blogging. A lot of people now that we have our smartphones and different portable, really great high quality portable cameras, people are walking around just taking video of themselves, just going around doing all sorts of things. So that's video blogging. But this was first known as audio blogging. Gives the people a way to just talk about things that they're passionate about instead of just sitting and typing things out. In August 2002, Carl Franklin launches .NET Rocks. Now that's also a software development podcast that's been around for 13 years now. And Carl and his co-host Richard Campbell were at the Lincoln, Nebraska Code Conference back in March, and I had a chance to meet them. And actually, it was Richard Campbell was sitting in one of my podcast talks, so it was really nice to be able to bounce information off so he could help even talk more about podcasting and how it's benefited themselves and the industry of software development. So it has been around for a long, long time. Back in February 2014 is when the term podcasting was first used in the Guardian newspaper. It combines iPod, because everybody used to have an iPod. Many of us probably still have iPods, or we've transitioned fully over to our iPhones, which is probably the easiest way to consume a podcast while out and about is through your iPad or your iPhone, because it's got the podcast app built right into the OS. Apple released iTunes in June 2014, which was iTunes 4.9, with native support for podcasts. We're now at iTunes 12. So iTunes has been around for quite a while as well. An Apple CEO in January 2006 demonstrated how to create a podcast using GarageBand. And that's actually, I use GarageBand to help create some of my intro and outro tunes and some of the audio that I use for videos that I create. If anybody's listened to any of the presentations or the trailers from Speaker Series, that audio, the little tunes that play through that, I created that using GarageBand. And I've also done that for like Global Hack and a few other events as well. So Apple has been a big proponent of podcasting. And again, so when people think of podcasts, it's always Apple and iPhone and everything like that. So, you know, mad props to Apple for being very big in helping the podcast space. So the thing that I was thinking of when I came up with the name for this presentation, Power of the Podcast, is what podcasting has really meant for me. So podcasting for me has transitioned me from being the shy person that sits in the back to the person that sits up front and to the person that gets up here and actually talks. Being a shy introvert, we'll say. I was never somebody who was going to get in front of 20, 30 people, however many people are here, I didn't count. But to be able to talk and actually have a conversation with these people that, people that I've looked up to, whether it was like Tim McKernan or Frank Opinion, I never would have reached out to talk to them in a one-on-one situation if it wouldn't have been for podcasting. My wife started a new job about 2 months ago, and I asked her a couple weeks in, I'm like, how are you doing at this new job? And she said, well, I'm still working on getting comfortable. And I told her, now this was just 4 or 5 weeks ago, that, would you believe that I'm really just now getting comfortable being a podcast host? Because, primarily, if you would listen to some of the first episodes of STL Tech Talk from 2 years ago, ooh, yeah, that was kind of a train wreck. So just to see that 180-degree change in what I've done in the past to the stuff that I'm actually putting out today is just you would think it's two completely different people. And that's something that I think podcasting has done for me. It gives me the opportunity to talk about things that I'm passionate about. I love smartphones, so I love talking about them. Podcasting gives me a chance to talk to people all across the world with podcasts. The show's listened to in like 52 countries. And my brother-in-law he's in his early 70s. He was in town a few months ago, and I said, hey, look at this. So I pulled up our statistics from the analytics of Tech Informers. And I'm like, just going through page after page of the different countries that the show had been heard in. And he's like, what? You gotta be kidding. I'm like, no, it's, whether they listen for 5 seconds or the entire episode of an hour, I don't know, I don't care. I just think it's really neat that somebody somewhere in a completely different part of the world took a moment to at least click and listen to at least a brief portion of what it is that me and co-hosts have to say. I think that's really something that I think has been very beneficial for me. It's just, the world that we live in now, we communicate with people all over the world, and podcasting gives us that opportunity to do that. So it's just one of those things of what people are passionate about, and we all like to get together with our friends. Well, using a podcast, it's like getting together with a really big group of friends on a regular basis, instead of just talking to the same 3, 4, 10 people. To just talk about things that we're really passionate about. So why should you listen to podcasts? I know who listens to podcasts on a regular basis? So, a little under half. So those of you that do, what is it that makes you guys listen on a regular basis?
Stories.
It's my morning inspiration.
It's morning inspiration.
You can listen anytime you want. You can just go on and go to the web anytime you want.
On-demand entertainment.
On-demand
Exactly.
entertainment.
On demand, and it's things that you enjoy. It's not, you don't have to sit through stuff that you're not interested in to get to the things that you're interested in.
Exactly. So many of them, Roberta, what kind of shows do you typically listen to that give you inspiration to get your day started off?
So on Hay House Radio, there's Dr. Christian Northrup, and so she talks about women's health and women's issues, but it's also very spiritual information, so making meaning out of your day or making purpose out of your life. There's also a guy named Michael Neal, Super Coach. So he's a coach, and he gives inspiring talks about how to achieve more, how to live your dream.
And when it comes to shows, there's a lot of the entrepreneurship shows, business shows, money, financial, and life coaching. Those are some of the most successful podcasts out there. John Lee Dumas, Entrepreneur on Fire, is probably one of the, if not the most well-known business-focused podcast out there. that he records all of his episodes on a Sunday and then releases them one episode each day. And they run about 30 to 40 minutes, talking to a different entrepreneur and what it is that got them involved in where they are today. And he's making a significant amount of money podcasting. It's very impressive to see what all he has been doing. Podcasts are free for people to consume. Just like I mentioned before with your phone, you can just simply punch it up and there it is right there. Or you can listen to the podcast on the host's website. All pretty much free of charge. A lot of podcasters will, after they reach a certain amount of episodes, they'll take the older episodes and put them behind like a paywall, and just, if you want to spend $5, you can get access to all the older episodes as well. But then that's, you know, one way that a podcaster can monetize. Cracker Barrel. Has anybody been to Cracker Barrel and seen that stand of audiobooks right next to the checkout? That's kind of the same way that you like to compare a podcast to. I like to compare podcasting to audiobooks. It's kind of the same thing, only with podcasts you're listening to more current, up-to-date information versus an audiobook that was recorded and brought and published, you know, way back, you know, who knows however long it was. Now, that's how you consume podcasts, right there on your phone. I took a screenshot this morning to put in here of different ways that you can find, you know, all sorts of different shows. Just punch in whatever term you're looking for, and you might be able to find something that interests you. You hit the trending or the top tabs. That podcast app is called Pocket Casts, and it's just one of my favorite ways that I consume personally.
Pocket Casts?
Yes, it's I believe it's $4.99 on Android, iOS, Windows Phone, and then you can buy the web experience for $10. It syncs all the way across, so if I start listening on the web and then I get in my car, I can plug my phone in and pick up right where I left off from the office and listen to the rest of it on the way home. This is really a great service. So as mentioned, it's a great way to better yourself by learning something new and finding something, again, that you're passionate about. Get more information on things that are really exciting for you. And entertain yourself while you're driving, exercising, running, just hanging outside, you know, on the front porch, or laying in a hammock on beautiful days like these last couple of weeks we've had here in St. Louis. It's the perfect time to be outside, walking around. One of the quotes that I always love from President Truman is, not all readers are leaders, but all leaders are readers. And that kind of holds true because, well, obviously podcasting was not around back in President Truman's time. But it kind of holds true because if successful people tend to read a lot of books, they like to listen to audiobooks, they listen to podcasts, and I'll get into a few more statistics here in just a little while. But I think that really is a nice way to kind of think about it. And of course, how many people here have their own business? So a significant amount of people. All right, so to talk a little bit about why podcasts are important to businesses, there's a few points that I like to make mention. It's like we talked about earlier, we live in an on-demand society. Who all are subscribed or purchased any of this content in the past? Probably a large percentage. I love Netflix. I don't personally use Hulu and iTunes for podcast and music as well. We want our content and we want it when we want it on our schedule. Or if we are watching TV shows, because the current television seasons are just now kicking off, we record, we DVR so we can watch it on our own time and skip through those commercials that we see the same stuff over and over again. Podcast listenership is growing significantly, and I'll show you a couple shows here in just a little while why that actually happened. But whenever you sit here and you factor in podcast consumption, Edison Research did a survey at the beginning of this year of 2,002 people ages 12 and up, and it says 33% of respondents say that they have listened to a podcast. It's a pretty significant amount of people that have actually listened to a podcast, and as you can see, that has been rising since 2006. Other than 2013, we had a drop there for some reason.
What was that age bracket again? Ages 12 to what?
12, I don't know what age they cut off, but it just started at age 12 was the people that they contacted and spoke with. Who has heard of Serial? 2, 3 people? Okay. Serial is a podcast that over its 12 episodes have been downloaded over 100 million times in the year that it's been released. Now what Serial is produced by This American Life. Who's heard of This American Life, NPR? So they're all kind of, it's a company out of New York that produces a lot of podcasts and a lot of audio content. So Serial was created by, again, This American Life, and it covers a murder case from, I think it's from 1999, of a high school student who's been accused of murdering his girlfriend. And this show just dove into it pretty deep, and it has really went, that show brought it to a lot of mainstream attention. It's been on news channels, Time Magazine, all sorts of web news outlets. It's just a crazy phenomenon that people are really having a tough time explaining. Who knows this guy? Does this person, this random guy, look familiar to anybody?
I don't put on some glasses, let me see.
Okay. All right. Now we all know the guy that's on the right in that image. So Mark Maron hosts the, I'll keep this PG rated, the WTF podcast with Mark Maron. He's a comic, stand-up comedian, and he's been on TV and movies in the past as well. So his show is downloaded on an average of 700 times per month. And the interview here with President Obama, now this is in a studio in Mark Maron's garage in Los Angeles. And this was recorded back in June of this year. And it was downloaded over 1 million times within the first 24 hours of release. That's pretty crazy. Now the interesting fact was that the White House themselves are the ones that reached out to this show's producer wanting to set this up a year. So it took that long to finally make this happen. And it was actually, when they recorded this, was right after the shooting at the church in Charleston, South Carolina. So it was right after that happened. And if you haven't listened to that, it's a fantastic interview. We'll just leave politics out of it. It shows kind of a different side of Obama and the fact that he's a very good speaker and be able to tell stories, and the interview is just really something I think everybody should listen to when they get a chance. So back to why podcasts are important to businesses. The marketing cost for podcast advertising is significantly less than it is to advertise on radio, TV, probably even print, depending on how it is that you're marketing and advertising your product. If you're sending out mailing letters, that could be different. But advertising on podcasts and sponsorships allows you to reach that niche audience. So if you have a flower shop, for example, if you can find I guess we'll say botany, like Botanical Gardens or something. Botanical Gardens had a podcast, and you own a flower shop. That would be a fantastic podcast to be a sponsor on. And your business can use its own podcast to reach customers in new ways. It gives you a chance, if you start your own podcast for your business, to not only reach new customers, but communicate with those customers in a different, regular way. Instead of, okay, we're going to record one video and put it on the website. But things change in the business. If you want to change direction with your business, it's a great way to reach out to people and kind of show your human side. It's always one thing to hear somebody and meet somebody, see them on TV and radio, and you only think of them in that way. But as knowing business owners, you get to know them on that personal side as well. And I think it kind of humanizes things in a way that normally you don't get in a mailer or a newsletter. You can do so in video as well, but the cost of producing videos is a little bit more than doing your own podcast. And like I said, as you can see, really you can get by with just using these two items here to do a podcast. So again, back to that, not all readers are leaders, but all leaders are readers. Because podcast listeners make money. More statistics showing the U.S. population of 18 and over, 25% of those people who responded make $75,000 or more. 14% of those people make $150,000 or more. 12% make $100,000 to $150,000, and 10% make $75,000 to $100,000 of all podcast consumers, 18 and over. And the age breakdown of listenership is kind of interesting as well, because you would kind of think the age 25 to 34 would be about the cutoff where things would kind of start slowing down. And it does kind of slow down once you get to 35 to 44. It drops to 17%. And then age 45 to 54 is 15%. 55 to 64, 12%. 65 and above, 6%. But that still shows a very significant portion of people that have a lot of money to spend listening to podcasts. So again, if you're advertising on podcasts, that's a huge percentage of people that you can still be targeting if you have that right niche or that right product. And I mentioned John Lee Dumas with Entrepreneur on Fire. He posts out his monthly income reports. So we'll just look at August 2015, net income $226,000. For the year up to the end of August, almost $2.1 million.
Sign me up.
Just podcasting. Granted, that's not what I'm getting, but otherwise I probably wouldn't be here. But it just goes to show that if you have a serious business plan and the right people on your team and the right niche for your audience that you can reach, there are definitely ways to make money with podcasting. Whether you're just doing it as a hobby and you just want to make a couple $100 each month, just go buy some new clothes or some new golf equipment or just whatever it is that you're wanting to do. It's a way that you can bring in a decent little side income.
What would you say is the largest contributor to that? Is it advertising? Is it people actually paying for the podcasts? Is it a combination of both?
He does Podcasters Paradise, which is kind of a membership-only networking group for podcasters. And that they do, that's where the significant amount of money comes from. But his sponsors and advertisers do bring in a significant amount of that each month.
So to listen to his podcast is a monthly fee?
No. That's all free. He's up over 1,000 episodes in I'm not sure exactly how long he's been doing it, but he's over 1,000 and he releases 7 a week.
Wow.
It's about 24 months, Kev.
About 24 months. So, and his story is that he had a position with a company that he was making over $100,000 a year. So he walked away from a really nice paying job to do podcasting. He took basically 1 year and he learned from a lot of people that were already doing things like Jamie Tardy from The Eventual Millionaire and a few other mentors, and just really worked out this, obviously a fantastic business plan and strategy. And when he launched on the ground running at full speed. And as you see, it's definitely paid off. All that hard work and everything that he does has paid off. It's been pretty interesting to watch how they do that. So, how can you get started to do your own podcast? need a topic. So if somebody that doesn't have one, if maybe somebody in here has actually thought about doing one, what would you want to talk about? Anybody?
Transit.
Travel. I think a travel podcast would be great. I think you can get some good sponsorship opportunities with that.
Teaching people about buying cars. I think selling cars.
You need to talk with Steve Stewart, James Kinson. I can put you in touch with them. Right. Robert?
Donald Trump.
Donald Trump? that would be really good right now. I guarantee it.
Trumped. Cooking.
Cooking would be fantastic.
So question, please. Of your statistics on listenership and profitability of listeners and what they make in the way of income, can you tell which ones are actually business owners or the chief business decision makers that one might want to target, who are a good percentage of the listenership?
I'd have to dig in probably deeper with Edison Research, who did that study, but they always say that successful business owners read, 3? They make sure to read, like a book a month, or they make sure to read 3 books.
Usually have 3 going at one time.
Yeah, they've always got something they're reading. They're always constantly learning. That is what their free time is learning more about their business or how to help advance what it is they're doing.
So theoretically, the podcasting tool can be used as effectively.
Yes.
Targeting business.
Yeah, it's the same thing as whether they pull up an audiobook on their Kindle. You get your Kindle and then
iBook.
iBooks and stuff like that. So any way that you just sit there and read, it's another way to just, instead of reading it visually, you're listening to it. And when it comes to learning new languages, that's the easiest way to learn, is to listen. Just dive right in and be listening and seeing the visual cues. That's the easiest way to learn a new language. That's why, I can't think of the name of that course. Rosetta Stone, exactly. It's all audio and visual, so you're learning new languages that way. You also need a creative name and a logo. That can be, creative names can be kind of challenging because as you're getting in, there's no way to know how many podcasts are actually out there. You just kind of have to, jot down a nice list of 10 names, 5 to 10 names, and go through and punch them in the .com or .net, .org, and try to find something that isn't taken, and then get someone to be, either you're creative enough on your own, and you can design your own logo. I'm not. So I've actually, paid graphic designers to come up with some of our logos as well. That nice creative name and a logo that pops and stands out that when somebody sees it, they're like, ooh, I'd like to see what it is. But again, if you've got the best name and best logo and your content isn't that good, people won't tune in. Or you could have a terrible podcast name and a terrible logo, but you're providing some great content value for your listeners. People will stick around, they'll check it out. And of course, you got to have the website to go with. I mean, this day and age, that's an obvious requirement. You just have to throw that in there. Just everybody's got to know. You need to have a website that you're pointing people back to. Whether if you're a business entrepreneurial person, you can show that you've got courses and different things that you're teaching. You might not be selling and making the money with the podcast, but you could be using things that you've got on your website to be selling to people that are coming and checking out your website from your show as well.
One more question, please. If you don't consider your voice very representative of one that people might want to listen to, have you examples of using others' voiceovers or any of that? Or do you recommend it at all?
I mean, you can do that. I've never thought I had a good voice, and I've actually had people tell me I've got a soothing radio style kind of voice. Well, guys are crazy. I mean, as soon as we're done talking, they're like, "You've really got a soothing." No.
Hey, Kevin, just on that subject, you mentioned earlier that you produce a couple of podcasts that you don't speak on.
Yes.
I mean, is that an example of where you might want to do something like that? Where, I mean, if you have an idea for a podcast, but you want someone else to be the quote unquote talent, I mean, I don't know what your involvement is with the ones that you simply produce.
Yeah, with the other two, whenever they're done, they'll record their audio locally, and then they'll just email me links to their audio files, and then I clean it up.
So in your case, you don't really control their content, but you probably could.
It's their show, and then I just edit it to make it sound as good as I can. And it's just one kind of service that I do offer as well. Do for people. So microphones and headphones. This one here, the Audio Technica ATR 2100, is very popular with podcasters. Currently on sale on Amazon, $40. And you can use it USB or XLR, so it's very flexible.
ART what?
ATR 2100. And then this one is like my favorite. It's the Yeti Blue, and it runs 130. And this one is very flexible because I can set it where I'm just talking directly into it and it blocks out everything else, or the person that I'm talking across from that only pick up those two, or it can do complete surround. And it's got different levels of gain. So if somebody talks real quiet, I can turn that up, or if somebody has a very projective voice. I've had a few interviews where I look at the audio wave file, which kind of sees, how it's blinking and stuff. I'm like this, my guest is like this, I'm like, so it's like, it's really good for that. They'll turn it down a little bit, so it doesn't come across in the recording.
That's a USB mic as well?
Yes, that is a USB mic, USB only, actually.
Kevin, which is the best one for singing?
For singing? Well, you've got dynamic.
XLRs?
Yeah. I think XLR gives you the most pure overall. Mike, maybe you can...
Yeti, that one on the left there, Yeti makes another version called the Pro Yeti. That's from a company called Blue. And that does USB as well as XLR. And that, for the money, it's about $250. That gives you some really outstanding sound, especially for singing. For anyone wanting to get into podcasting, you don't want to blow a wad on the microphones. Yeti in general, the one on the left again, is a really, really great buy. They've just recently come out with this one that Kevin has, where it's all black. The other one is all silver, and it is an absolute eye catcher. Just it's an amazing microphone, and you didn't really talk about the features on it much, but anything that you want to do in any room you have, including this one, you can do it with that microphone. It's very, very versatile.
Yeah. It is a very good microphone. Mm-hmm. So that might be a good option if you're looking to sing. Do you sing? Would you do like a singing podcast?
Yes.
That and some blankets in a closet would give you excellent vocal capture for singing. Yeah. There's no problem with that at all.
What do you say?
That if, like for example, there's actual podcasters that will use their walk-in closets. Since they've got all the hanging clothes, close the door, turn the light on, and just start recording, because it's like having your own personal sound.
Yeah. Because the clothes absorb the sound.
Yeah, it takes away anything. The echo, things bouncing off the glass and the walls. And
I like the echo.
Well, then you might want to go out into the living room or the kitchen.
Or in the shower.
Go in the bathroom.
That's why everybody says they sound real good when they're singing in the shower. But I didn't get to see anybody in Las Vegas say they're going to sing in the shower.
Won't even go down there.
Interviews on that one, Kev, are also excellent. You talked about the sound profile capturing you and then someone across from you. I haven't found a microphone that actually betters the Yeti.
Yeah.
It's very good. There's a figure-8 sound profile in the front and in the back, and it's wonderful.
It is fantastic.
Kevin, are you coming out of the closet?
No. Podcast topic, right?
All right, so computer or digital recorder to capture your audio. There's different digital recorders that are just separate that you can plug these mics directly into, so you don't have to take around your computer if you don't want. I like using the computer because then I can just, it's automatically saved here, and then as soon as it's done, I instantly save it to my cloud storage.
Can I back up a bullet point ask about headphones? What do you recommend?
Honestly, whenever I record, I've got some that came with a Samsung Galaxy device I bought years ago, that they're just little in-ear earbuds. And then whenever those tear up, I go to Amazon to buy another pair for about $7.
Okay. Okay, thanks.
What's the purpose of the headphones?
If you're doing an interview, especially like over Google Hangouts or Skype, you don't want the sound that's coming through your speakers coming back into the microphone. If your microphone is sensitive enough, it creates an echo, and it's terrible for.
So you don't need the conversation you're having, they don't have to be in the room with you?
No, no, you don't have to do that. In fact, with STL Tech Talks, I changed the format a few times, and starting in April, I took that show to just in person because I feel I have a better conversation with people in person than I do over video. I just get sidetracked, whether it's ADD or something, I don't know. I get sidetracked too much when it comes to that. So that's why I just like doing in-person stuff. If I can make eye contact and really get a feel for how the person's responding. They're not distracted, I'm not distracted. We're just focused on what we're trying to get accomplished.
Yeah, sometimes also if you're listening, whether you're recording audio or video, whatever, sometimes you'll pick up stuff in the headphones that your natural ears will either dismiss, or because of the microphone might be capturing certain sounds in a more pronounced way than what you're hearing with your natural ears. So understanding what is being picked up is a good idea.
I mean, when it comes to headphones, it's up to a person's individual preference. Some people, I mean, there's I think it was also Blue that are lo-fis. They're almost like $300 headphones. I got a chance to try some out at CES back in January, the big consumer electronics show. I fell in love. Haven't bought any because I can't drop $300 on a pair of headphones. I would love to have a set.
I'm just curious, you said you don't use a mixing board yet. Do you actually do sound equalization in GarageBand, or do you just take what comes off the mic and just use that?
What comes out of the mic, since when I'm recording in GarageBand, it does pretty good, but then I have each individual track. I've got my track, I've got the guest track, and then I'll go through and I'll edit each one on its own, and then I'll bring them into Audacity, which is a free piece of software, and then that can kind of level things out as well.
So you don't use any like compression or anything like that in the software?
No, I go pretty simple with my edit.
You mentioned logo earlier. Is the reason for that because people judge a podcast by its cover, I guess?
Yeah, some people do.
Yep.
Some people do, yeah. And that's just kind of the nature. We like things that are nice looking visual. We're a visual society. So if something stands out, it's really eye-catching, you're going to gravitate towards that versus somebody that just drew something up in MS Paint.
So you showed that app earlier with had all the little squares. I guess that's their logo, and that's kind of how people decide if they want to listen to it or not.
Yeah.
The look of that.
Yeah, and then it also helps when it comes to getting featured on iTunes New and Noteworthy, or if you're like a featured podcast. Apple and the iTunes team that deals with the podcast department, they will not even consider your show. If they've actually contacted Adam Carolla, who he's a well-known comedy persona in podcasting and actually just on TV in general. And they contacted his producer and said, we want to feature his show, but you got to step up, your graphics. So if Adam Carolla, who makes a really good living off podcasting, has to step his logo up to get featured, then just imagine somebody that doesn't have good artwork to start with.
Are podcasts all streaming, or are they downloaded, or how does that work?
You can choose to stream them, or the other way, because like with iTunes or even Pocket Casts, you can have it where each time a new episode is released, it automatically downloads to your phone. Or you can choose to I just choose to stream it.
How do you get the alerts? Is it by email or through your app?
Through the app. You'll just get that nice little red one. Like if I pulled up my Pocket Cast app, and you would see the ones that I've got there that have a bunch of little red numbers in the top right corner. Shows that.
Is that's done with an RSS feed?
Yes. Yeah, it's all RSS feeds. In fact, that's what you do submit to iTunes to really get the whole ball started as an RSS feed from your audiophile host.
And where are they hosted?
They're hosted on, I use a company called Libsyn, Libsyn, and they've been around podcasting since pretty much the beginning. What did you say, Mike?
Yeah. Groundbreakers
Rob
for sure.
Yeah, Rob Walsh. Libsyn hosts the WTF show, I know, and also a lot of the other really great podcasts. And you can start a plan there for as low as $5 a month. Most of the plans that I use, since I want some more detailed analytics on where and how people are consuming them, I'll use their $20 a month plan, and that gives me a certain amount of storage each month that I can store up to 400 megabytes of new content. Yes.
What kind of analytics do you get with Libsyn, Cap?
It breaks it down geographic, how they're consuming, whether it's iPhone or Android or Windows, whether they're doing it on browser. They'll even break it down Chrome, Internet Explorer, Safari, Firefox. They break it down pretty in depth.
Does that also allude to the countries you were talking about?
Yes. Yeah, by geographic, it'll give you that list of where you've got, it could just be one person in Iraq listening. And you're like, okay. But, 10 people in China, and it's just really interesting to see how they do that in different shades of where your show's been listened to. Yes.
And I guess that's how you determine how long a person or the listener may have stayed on, whether they just checked out or stayed.
Yeah, that's one of the actual flaws right now, that there's no way to gauge how long somebody has listened. That's the one thing that hosts, audiophile hosts are looking for still, trying to figure out. That's one of the biggest questions that advertisers have. You might have 10,000 listens of an episode, but are they listening for 10 seconds? Or do they skip through the ad? There's, at the moment, no clear way that I personally know of yet to find that information out. And that kind of goes the same way, I think, in radio and TV. You kind of have an idea, but there's really no hard, concrete proof.
How do people typically link from their website to, if they have a podcast, how is that link made?
Like for me, if you go to, we'll just say Who's in St. Louis show, you go to Who STL, and right there in the right corner, it has an embedded player that will bring up, every time I publish a new episode, the most recent episode is right there to be played. Or you can browse through the older episodes.
Okay, so it can be right there on your website. You don't necessarily have to send somebody to a podcast app or something.
No, you can. I mean, that's one of the advantages if you are really into podcasting, is creating your own app solely for your show, that you can get an app created.
Steve, if you're on WordPress, there's a couple plugins for players.
Yeah, PowerPress and
Libsyn,
Blueberry,
and it just automatically
GaragePress would be another one.
That's cool.
Yeah. Computer digital recorder, software to edit. I mentioned GarageBand and Audacity. GarageBand, if you want the extra audio clip loops, you can pay, I think it's like $5. Otherwise, GarageBand's already preloaded for you to install. Web host for your audio files. Again, Libsyn is who I would recommend. Anytime I've had any kind of issue with them, as soon as I reach out to Rob or email support, they're on it. I had one issue where I had changed the program that I was using to tag it, which is the ID3 tags. So, if you looked at the information for that audio file, it would tell you what it was, details. I messed up with the graphics, and so I switched the actual program that I was using to tag those, because it would not play on certain browsers, and that's what we traced it back to, was using a bad piece of software. So once I switched that, we were good to go. again, I love something. These guys did it good.
Was that related to where the file was placed then? What was the cause there? I missed the cause part.
The cause of it was just a bad piece of software I found on the Mac. It was, I don't know, it had something to do with the graphic. It wasn't like my album art was too big or anything. It was just something in the way that it compiled.
So how it assembled the sound file.
Yeah.
With the photograph and everything in it.
Yeah.
It was formatted incorrectly.
Yeah, it was just the strangest thing. And I just traced it back to that's the only change that I had made. So I switched to a different software, resubmitted the files, and we're all good. So if you're interested in learning more, there's various Facebook groups. A local group is St. Louis Podcasts. There's meetup groups. The largest local group is St. Louis Podcasting Group. Two Guys Talking Podcast Network in St. Charles, which Mike Wilkinson is back there. He runs that network. And STL Vernacular, that's kind of a newer website that Adam Frick is trying to kind of get more local podcasts, just all organized in one space. But if you just go to that website, you can link out to everybody's different websites. It's just really good. So it's stlvernacular.com. If anybody wants more information, feel free to just email me where I can get you that information as well. It's really, really good. You'd be surprised how many people in St. Louis are actually doing podcasts that people don't know about. And if you're living in St. Louis and you're into podcasts, you want to know about that because you want to talk to those people, whether it's to get advice or just to listen to the show and see what they're talking about.
Can you give some hints on how to get sponsorship for your podcast?
Ask. That's what I found. I found that the answer is always no if I don't ask somebody.
Okay.
Just make sure you've got any kind of analytics that you feel that they would be wanting to ask you before you reach out. Just find people that, like with STL Tech Talk, Unidev used to be a sponsor. Currently one of the sponsors is Tech Systems, another IT staffing company in St. Louis. Because, I mean, it's in a tech field, so it makes sense. Some sponsors that I'm looking to talk with for Who's Who in St. Louis are like restaurant owners, kind of travel destination places that people are visiting to kind of help get their name out there to people that might stumble across that show because they're looking to travel. Again, back to the traveling. That show's not just for people in St. Louis, it's for people anywhere in the United States or around the world that might be considering traveling to St. Louis. Okay.
I'm sorry.
I'd actually be interested in the opposite of his question. How would you find sponsor or place podcasts to sponsor on?
How would you find a podcast to place a sponsor on?
Yeah, to sponsor my business on. I guess the Facebook groups, maybe?
He's standing in front right there.
Yeah. Again, it's just a matter of Facebook groups, and because I know there's a Rock Paper podcast, it's a music one. There's just all sorts of different ones. STL Vernacular, you can look through that list and see if there's any shows. Mike's Two Guys Talking Network. You've got shows that range from TV shows, movie recaps, and
I'd like to go back to the first question that the gentleman had, which is how do you get your show monetized? The answer is you must have compelling content. Everybody in this room has a skill set or a perspective that someone else does not have. And it gets back to what Kevin was talking about niche. Finding someone that is at all interested in something that your company or that you do is 90% of any podcast you should have. We can talk about tech and all the tech stuff about what a podcast is, but if you don't have something compelling or a story that engages people, you're on a fuse, and you want the fuse to be something that ignites you. And talking about a skill set or something that you're passionate about, like Kevin is and is doing, that's what will give you something that's tangible. Will make people want to sponsor it, like Will. And that's where you want to start it for sure.
And another question, if that's okay.
Yep.
It would be distribution. Libsyn automatically feeds iTunes.
Yes.
And there's another aggregator called Stitcher
Yes.
What other aggregators do you recommend submitting your podcast to, and how?
With Stitcher, basically Stitcher is just, you go in and you fill out your partner form, which I recently did that with USTL. And you put that in there and you give them your RSS feed. And it gives that link and it'll start populating and they approve it. TuneIn Radio is another one. There's Spreaker. And there's a whole list on podcast411.com that you can go through. Some of them are kind of defunct now. It's been so long since they've used them. There's, it's iTunes, and once iTunes gets it, most podcast apps pull from the iTunes.
Oh, really?
Directly, yes.
Okay.
But Stitcher and TuneIn Radio are two.
TuneIn, okay.
Yeah, those are two different. They're their own thing. TuneIn Radio, you've got to email them directly and say, here's this, and give them your album art, and then they'll put it when you search.
Kevin, when compelling content was just mentioned, and when I think about that, I think there are different aspects of that. One is the subject matter itself and whatever facts or ideas are being presented. I think another aspect could be the energy with which it's being presented. How much personality is there? How much what kind of flow is there? And the people and person or people involved. What can you tell us about what important part energy plays?
Huge. Like I mentioned, those early episodes of STL Tech Talk were horrible. I wouldn't even want to listen to them now. No, I wouldn't know. They're there if somebody wants to go back and listen, but I'm not going to go back. I'm like, no. It's just bad memories. But no, I think it's come across in my last few episodes that I've really done, and I've remarked as I'm going through editing, I'm like, man, I laughed so much on these interviews. And that's how the host is having fun. When they're laughing, it comes across. When you're in a good mood, you're having a good day, it definitely comes across. And there's been times when I'm getting ready to record, I'm like, I don't even want to do this right now. But then I do it and it actually pulls me out of the mental funk that I was in going into it. It's like, man, I'm glad I did that. And not just away. I know you've had a question for a while.
You mentioned John Lay Dumas's podcast Paradise, that it's a premium content membership. What kinds of things constitute premium content membership worthy?
It's about networking with others and doing cross collaborations. Hey, I'll guest on your show, you guest on mine. We'll cross promote each other's content and shows.
So it's not specific content for your podcast necessarily.
No, not necessarily.
Is there always a guest and a host, or is it sometimes just a solo presenter?
Sometimes it can just be a solo presenter. Just somebody that's got something on their mind that they just want to get out there. I look at podcasting now kind of like a work of art. That you got your planning, you do your preparation, and then everything else kind of goes from there. You hit your hand up, and then I'll choose.
So I'm just curious. So let's say you get everything. You got your gear. You got your content's great. You got your brand built up. And obviously, we talked about having energy in your podcast is really important. What are some other avenues that you can use to grow your listenership, other than just having good content and good branding? But are there actual avenues for you to advertise your podcast to grow your listenership?
Yeah, you can reach out to other people. Like again, I do a lot of tech-focused ones that are consumers. So I can reach out to other hosts of other shows and say, hey, would you want to be on mine? I'll be on yours. Just do a guest kind of thing. That's another way that you can do that. Robert.
Other ways of making revenue from it is you have your website, you get popular and so forth. You can sell things on that website, on that blog, on that website, blog,
website,
podcast
blog. It's
site.
really the same thing anymore.
Right. T-shirts, Tech Talk T-shirts, hats.
Shirts, stickers.
Right. And is it like Twitter and so forth? You get followers and so forth, and that's how you get more sponsorship money. If you become more popular, the more you can charge for sponsorship, just like a radio show.
Yeah, and then there's another thing that I didn't mention. Again, we could talk about this for hours. I know Angela's got so much time.
I'm just trying to be respectful of people's time.
Yeah.
So I know. I love the questions though. We can keep this
Yeah,
going.
as long as the questions are flowing, I'll keep talking. And it's called Patreon. It's kind of like Kickstarter in a way where people, well, not really Kickstarter, I won't say that. Yeah, so it's kind of a subscription thing, but it's up to the listener's choice. They can they can subscribe for $1 a month, as little as $1 a month, if they reach, and it's up to whoever hosts the show and sets up their Patreon account. For if somebody signs up to do $15 a month, send them a t-shirt, $5 a month, send them a sticker, $50 a month, hey, you're going to get in special pre or post-show discussions that are just private to only those people that are at that certain thing, so they're getting something for their value. There's just different ways, again, it just becomes how creative somebody is with their show and their business, and just how creative they are themselves. I'm not that creative though. That's why I need assistance.
You're pretty creative.
I try. I mean, I like to think so to a point.
So I've just begun to blog thanks to some Unidev people. And when I was determining from, when you think business, there are any number of topics, but there are a few sites that were recommended for determining what's trending, what's going to be a good potential source for attracting readership. So is there something similar that can help you determine whether your topics, even if you're passionate, maybe there is a listenership or there isn't? Is there anything like that?
I won't say no, but I don't know for sure.
Okay.
I would guess in this world of content marketing and marketing in general, I'm sure there's something out there very similar. But you can always go look at, at iTunes and Podcast App and just look at what's trending, and see what topics those shows are about. And that kind of gives you an idea. Like right now, if you want to start a political podcast, now's a great time. You're right in the heat, or we're really getting ready to get into the meat of the political season. So if you're into politics, start a political podcast. It's a great time. So if anybody else has any other questions, I'll turn it back over to Ms.
Awesome. Thank you, Kevin.